My name is Dr. Mike Brumm. I'm the owner of Brumm Swine Consultancy. I received a bachelor degree from Iowa State University, a master's and PhD from Purdue. I was a professor of animal science and swine specialist at the University of Nebraska for 27 years, and I incorporated Brumm Swine Consultancy in 2006 in Minnesota. Took early retirement from Nebraska, and as part of my consultancy, 50% of my time created what was at that time the largest private swine research entity in the United States, SVC Research, and we currently put through about 35,000 weaned pigs a year on experiment, which is a lot of work. The other half of my consultancy, and where actually the majority of my time was spent the last few years, has been buildings and maintenance, feeders and drinkers, specialized especially in ventilation and the electronic controllers in hog barns, and generally have worked for all of the major production systems in the United States, training their people on how to make ventilation work in have been very successful. As I announced at this conference, I'm done. This was the last presentation that I have planned to give on pigs. I'll be 71 years old in 2 months, and I have other things to do in my life. I've been speaking to pork producers as a presenter for 44 years. It's time for the next generation to bring their enthusiasm to the industry. So the first presentation I did at this conference, they asked me to talk about how the U.S. industry got to the point where it's at. Take them through our struggles, and we're talking here ownership, use of capital, cost of production, and that. So I took the audience through a look at our industry. In the 1970s, we were very similar to Argentina in that we had 100 sows, 150 sows, farrow to finish, one farm. We grew corn and we grew soybeans. We made feed on the farm, fed it to the pigs, sold the pigs, put the manure on the ground, did it again and again. In the 1980s, we started figuring out that professional management of the sows was better, so we started forming sow unit. We started separating the sow from growing. So 4 neighbors or 4 brothers or whatever would buy 600 sows, and it would be run professionally, and they'd take pigs home. Same buildings, but now because there are not sows there, they had enough space to bring those pigs home and grow them. Same model. In the 90s, as we got better at discovering early weaning, and that in fact it was better to take the pig away from the sow the day you weaned rather than to take the pig off site when it was 20 kilos because of the break in diseases, we started building 1,200 sow sites. Bigger is better, okay? And part of that was labor, weekend labor and all of that. As you get bigger, you have more options. For someone doesn't show up to work, someone can do it. When there's only 2 of you and one of you is sick, it doesn't work. When there's 10 of you and one of you is sick, you can still get the job done. Okay? And we run in the U.S. about 300 females per employee at our large production units. Because we do not make feed at the production unit, we do not deal with manure at the production unit. We hire that all done. So it's one employee per 300 females is a reasonable number to get an estimate of what's there. Current size now is 5,000 sows. Okay, that's anyone investing in new, they're pretty much building that size. And that size gets us 2,400 weaned pigs in less than 1 week, depending on productivity. And in the 80s, we also had Clean Water Act, the Clean Water Act and the creation of our Environmental Protection Agency. And they regulate animal agriculture and everything doing with water for animal ag based on animal units. Okay? And the magic number in animal units for most states which implement the EPA regulations, is 1,000 animal units. At 1,000 animal units, the intensity of regulation generally increases. So they call a pig greater than 25 kilos 0.4 animal units. Okay, so 2,500 pigs is 1,000 animal units. Guess what? Most of the new facilities being built in much of the U.S. are 2,490 pigs because of that regulatory. And lo and behold, 5,000 sows get you 2,500 pigs in a week. Oh, suddenly that's how we got to the size we got at. The second big change that we got is consolidation, of course. We have a magazine called Successful Farming, www.agriculture.com. Every fall for the last 30 years, maybe more, I'd have to look, they publish a list of who the big ones are. And the companies voluntarily give their information on number of sows. When they started 30 years ago, the top 40, the top 50 was less than 20% of production. The list they published last October 1, 2/3 of all the females in the United States are owned by 40 companies. Okay? Consolidation. The third thing that's driven our industry was linkages with the slaughter plant. Okay, we used to sell live animals. Give me the money today, I'll bring you the pigs. Right? Now, 40% of all pigs that go to slaughter, the production company owns the slaughter plant and processing. And that's growing. Okay? The other 60%, only 2% of all the pigs sold in the U.S. today negotiate price the day they deliver the animal to slaughter. Everything else is linked by some kind of contract with a slaughter plant in terms of how are we going to negotiate price, what's the basis for setting the price, what value do I guarantee in terms of percent lean or weight or numbers of pigs or ractopamine free or how many loads will you bring me at 3 a.m. in the morning so that when I start my kill line at 6 I have pigs. All of those go into contracts. So we're very increasingly linked up the value chain. And I said that linkage is increasing because with mandatory price reporting in the United States, the slaughter plants every day have to report what they receive, if other than internal, any transfer of loins and hams and shoulders and that, they have to report that price. And it gets published. So we know what the value is every day. And you start doing the math and you say, the slaughter plant is sure making a lot of money. Because the consumer price is relatively steady all the time. Then you look at this, wow, you guys are making money. How come I can't get some of that money? Well, the way I get that money is what? I eliminate the transfer of ownership, because if you transfer ownership, someone's got to make money. Right? I eliminate that. So now production becomes cost of production, cost of goods. It's just a line item cost to get the pig in the slaughter plant. First thing that happened when we started owning our own slaughter plants, weights went up. Okay, because we weren't trying to individually make profit on every individual pigs. We're looking at profit on pounds of pork coming out of the slaughter plant. And we're running right now, we call them packer-owned or slaughter plant-owned pigs, are running about 1.3 kilos heavier than producer-owned pigs that are sold to a slaughter plant. This is carcass weight, head off. This is a lot of meat, and that number goes up. Our slaughter weights increase, carcass weight 0.6 kilos per year for the last 30 years. Okay, it happens, and nothing is going to change that. We also discovered, because our market chain is different. Here in Argentina, you buy meat at a butcher shop. The butcher shop gets a carcass and they cut it up and do it. We sell to the grocery store, to Walmart, to Target, to Hy-Vee, to all our grocery chains. we sell them prepackaged meat. Maybe it was already packaged at the slaughter plant, gas infused and all of that. All of the wastage. When the local butcher sells you a piece of meat, he's got fat trim, he's got whatever he's got to get rid of. Well, that all happens back at the slaughter plant, where they're equipped to add value to that. Okay, and all that value adds up. So we have a totally different market system also that reflects some of that. Okay, I mean, the big lessons. One was how do I participate in value further in that? Secondly, the one we didn't discuss is contracting. How do I use other people's money to build facilities so that don't have to, I still ultimately pay for it, but I pay for it a little bit on every pig instead of going to a bank and borrowing it and have to pay interest on it. So we'll call it 2/3 of all pigs that are grown to slaughter weight in the U.S., the pig owner does not own the production facility. That's a huge difference. That also solves our labor problem because now the barn owner gets paid, but he has to do labor. We value manure. We do all the economics on manure, really heavy. And on a 2,500 head barn, it adds $25,000 per year in value because I buy less commercial fertilizer. Plus, on corn under our conditions, we get about a 5% increase in yield, which is 500 kilos per hectare more corn, just because they use pig manure versus commercial fertilizer. Oh, this math works. So who wants pig barns? Grain farmers. Okay, so we have to be conscious of that. We've unknowingly created a demand for our barns. So, how do you utilize other people's capital? How do you participate further up the chain? How do you get to a scale size that you can afford, that you can put someone that spends 24 hours a day, 7 days a week thinking only of pigs, instead of thinking going to an exposition somewhere to look at tractor or seed corn or combine or whatever. All they think about is I wake up and deal with pigs. They get very good, and that's huge. And finally, the economics. We don't want best pig performance. We want best economic performance. And many times it isn't best pig performance. It isn't the best absolute feed conversion, kilo per kilo. It isn't the best growth rate in grams per day. We might sacrifice something because we make more money. And that's a key lesson that it took us a long time to learn too.